Black CEO gets slapped in court. 5 minutes later, she ends his career. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's get back to the story. Shut your mouth. The words cracked through the courtroom like a whip. Every head turned. A uniformed officer, jaw-locked, veins high on his neck, stood over the witness stand. His right hand rose mid-air, open, trembling, ready to strike. Across from him, a black woman in a mustard-yellow blazer didn't flinch. Her posture was calm, chin lifted, eyes fixed on him. The kind of look that doesn't defend itself, it decides. Gasps rippled through the rows. Phones lifted. The air thickened. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now back to her. Officer Grant's voice thundered again, harsher. You people never know your place. He stepped closer, grabbed her collar, yanking her forward. Her blazer caught the courtroom light, gold flashing against navy uniforms, a flare of quiet defiance. The judge froze mid-motion. Officer Grant, he barked, but authority had already slipped from his bench. In the gallery, lawyers hesitated between outrage and fear. One intern slowly raised a phone recording. Another whispered, "Is she really going to let him do that?" She didn't move. She simply exhaled a single calm breath that steadied the entire room. Then her voice, low, precise, cut through the silence. "Go ahead. Show them who you are." For a split second, even Grant's rage stalled. No shouting, no panic, only the cold weight of every camera now aimed at him. Her stillness was louder than his scream. The hand that hovered in the air began to tremble. He hadn't realized it yet, but the moment had shifted from control to consequence, from his courtroom to hers. Somewhere in the back row, a reporter whispered, "That woman, isn't she the CEO testifying against the department?" Grant's jaw tightened. He yanked his hand back, forcing a laugh that cracked like glass. "You think that title saves you here?" She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just enough to make the room hold its breath. "No," she said softly, "but it saves you from yourself for now." The judge finally found his voice banging the gavel, but the sound came too late. The footage was already rolling the internet, already waiting, and the woman in the yellow blazer, silent, composed, had already won the first round without raising a finger. The gavel kept echoing, but no one was listening. The courtroom had shifted, no longer a place of law, but of reckoning. Every pair of eyes was fixed on her, the woman in the mustard-yellow blazer collar slightly creased where his hand had been. She didn't adjust it. She didn't need to. That wrinkle was evidence. Officer Grant stepped back, his boots heavy against the marble floor. He looked around for backup, the bailiff, the judge, anyone, but found only phones raised like verdicts. A single camera flash lit the room, slicing through the haze of tension. Then another, and another. Justice, it seemed, had found a better witness. The judge's voice cracked under the weight of it all. "Let's maintain order, please." Order. The word rang hollow. There was no order, only exposure. The CEO stood still, eyes forward, the faintest glimmer of reflection dancing across her gold buttons. Her calm wasn't silence. It was judgment delivered without a word. Grant tried to speak. "She provoked me," but even his lie stumbled halfway out, tripping over the sound of collective disbelief. From the back, a journalist whispered into her recorder, "Black CEO assaulted in court. Witnesses filming. Breaking now." The phrase, "Black CEO," carried through the air like thunder. Finally, they named her right. Grant's superior, Captain Doyle, rose from the bench nearby, his voice thin and defensive. "This is being exaggerated. Sit down, all of you." No one moved. Not the jury, not the public, not even the clerk who had stopped typing 5 minutes ago. The CEO finally turned, slow, deliberate, not toward the officer but toward the crowd. The click of her heels on marble was the only sound left. Each step felt measured, like punctuation marking the end of an era. She stopped beside the judge's podium, voice calm and even. "Your Honor, may I speak?" He hesitated, nodding once, almost relieved. "Proceed." Her gaze swept the room, resting briefly on every face that had watched her nearly struck. "I was invited here to testify about abuse of power," she said. "I didn't expect the evidence to present itself." A murmur rippled through the gallery, soft then louder until someone whispered, "She's right." And suddenly no one dared to look away. Grant's hands balled into fists at his sides. His badge gleamed, catching the same light that burned off her blazer, the contrast almost poetic. He took a step forward, but his own superior blocked him. "Not another move," Doyle muttered through clenched teeth. Grant froze, realizing too late that he wasn't the enforcer anymore. He was the example. The CEO's assistant appeared in the doorway, poised, dressed in black, holding a phone. Their eyes met for half a second. One silent nod. Protocol had begun. In that instant, the courtroom didn't just witness a scandal. It witnessed a shift from intimidation to accountability, from noise to quiet command. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was warning. And every man in that room felt it. End of part 2. The courtroom breathes again, but everyone knows her next move will not be in words. The sound came first, the scrape of his shoe against the marble floor. Then his shadow loomed over her again. Officer Grant had decided silence wasn't enough punishment. His pride needed noise. He grabbed her collar and yanked her forward, the mustard blazer pulling tight against her shoulders. The courtroom gasped, not because they'd never seen violence here, but because they'd never seen anyone face it so still. "You think this courtroom is your stage?" he barked. His spit landed on her cheek. She didn't wipe it, didn't look away. Her eyes stayed fixed on his two steady lights in a storm that belonged to him, not her. "You just made it yours," she said softly. The words sliced the air like the first note of a verdict. Even the microphones caught the tremor in his breath. Across the aisle, a junior attorney froze mid-step. She whispered to her colleague, "He just put hands on her on camera." The colleague shook his head, whispering back, "He's finished." Grant's fingers tightened. His rage searched for authority, but found only exposure. He wanted her afraid. Instead, she looked disappointed. That was worse. Her blazer, golden crumpled now, still caught the light, a streak of sun inside this dull gray room. Somewhere in the back, a phone beeped. Then another. Notifications. Uploads. The moment was spreading like flame on dry paper. The judge slammed the gavel once, a hollow sound. Order, but no one heard him. The courtroom had shifted allegiance. Grant's voice cracked, desperate now. "You provoked me. You disrespected the badge." She tilted her head slightly. The badge disrespected itself. That line landed like thunder. Even the cameras paused, almost reverent. A reporter in the gallery whispered, "This isn't a trial anymore. It's a reckoning." Her breathing stayed slow, each inhale a declaration that she was still in control. The gold on her sleeve shimmered again as she adjusted it, erasing his grip like cleaning glass. "You're done here," she murmured. He frowned. "What did you say?" She looked past him toward the door, toward the world outside that was already watching. 5 minutes, she said. That's all it takes to end a career. He didn't understand yet, but the audience did. And somewhere in a corner of the internet, her name was already trending. The first phone rose like a warning flare, then another, and another. Within seconds, half the courtroom had turned into an audience, quiet, trembling, recording history frame by frame. Officer Grant froze mid-sentence. His hand still hovered near her shoulder, but now it wasn't authority keeping him steady, it was fear. The woman in the mustard blazer stood tall, posture unbroken. She didn't tell them to stop filming. She didn't have to. Every camera knew exactly who the story belonged to. A voice came from the gallery, a woman, mid-30 seconds, sharp suit, holding her phone high. "You're live," she said. Grant's jaw tightened. "Turn that off." "No," the woman replied. "You turned it on." The line hit harder than the gavel. The judge's eyes darted across the room, between the raised screens, the whispers, the storm he could no longer control. This court will come to order, but no one was listening to him anymore. Every lens was aimed at the mustard blazer, its gold catching every flicker of light, its owner radiating calm like a lesson no one wanted to learn but couldn't look away from. Her phone buzzed on the witness stand. She didn't pick it up, only glanced at the name flashing across the screen, Nia, executive assistant. Then her gaze lifted back to Grant. "Still sure you want to keep performing?" she asked. He blinked, the words slipping past him before he realized she was the one holding the room now. An intern near the back whispered, "That's her, the CEO from Horizon Legal Holdings." Someone else gasped, "Wait, the billionaire." Grant stepped back half an inch. Too late. The murmurs had become a current carrying his authority away. Reporters leaned forward. Pens hovered. The energy shifted from outrage to anticipation. It wasn't a courtroom anymore. It was a mirror. And everyone could see which reflection still stood with dignity. The judge finally muttered weakly, "Bailiff." But the bailiff didn't move. His eyes were on her too. She brushed invisible dust off her sleeve, the gesture small but deliberate. Let it record, she said softly. Truth works better on camera. For a second, nobody breathed. Then the sound of typing, tapping, live streaming filled the air like rainfall. Outside on the courthouse steps, notifications began to spike. Number courtroom slap trending. Number mustard blazer woman trending faster. Grant stared at the glowing screen surrounding him. 100 silent witnesses, all capturing the same truth. His voice had started this. Hers was going to finish it. For a heartbeat, the noise faded. The courtroom blurred into a soft haze of light and echo. Her eyes drifted past the crowd, past the cameras, past the man still trembling before her, and somewhere behind that calm stare, a memory opened. She was 23. Different courtroom. Same smell, paper polish, old air, pretending to be justice. She had stood in the back row, clutching her internship papers, heart pounding in a room full of authority she didn't yet understand. A senior attorney had turned to her and said, "Sweetheart, interns wait outside." She'd replied, "But I'm presenting evidence." He'd smiled like pity. "Then you're in the wrong place." Minutes later, a bailiff, not violent, just careless, had placed a hand on her shoulder and guided her out as the court continued without her. Outside, she'd stood in the hall, humiliated, holding the truth that no one cared to hear. That night, she didn't cry. She wrote, page after page, ideas, notes, dreams. "Build your own system," she'd written at the top. "One that can't throw you out." That sentence became the foundation of Horizon Legal Holdings, the company she would one day own. The reason she could now stand here in this very kind of room, untouchable. Her lips parted slightly as the past met the present. Grant's words echoed again. "You people never know your place." The phrase had haunted her once. Now it just confirmed his ignorance. She inhaled slowly. The scent of old varnish was still the same, but this time the silence was hers to command. The gold of her blazer glowed faintly under the flickering courtroom lights, the same color as the notepad cover she had used that night, the one with her first draft of the company charter. Her assistant's voice buzzed faintly from the phone still on the stand. "Ma'am, are you ready?" Her gaze didn't shift. "Yes," she whispered. "Been ready for years." The noise of the room began to return. Footsteps, whispers, the restless creak of seats. But she was no longer in the same reality as them. She was standing on the bridge between who she was and who they tried to keep her from becoming. And when her eyes lifted back to Grant, the girl who once got escorted out of a courtroom was gone. In her place stood a woman who owned one. The gavel slammed once, then again. "Order! This court will come to order." But the words had lost their echo. They fell flat against the air like a command shouted into a storm that had already chosen its direction. Judge Reynolds was a man used to control. Decades of rulings had trained the room to obey his voice. But today no one was listening to him. They were listening to her silence. He adjusted his glasses, eyes darting between the officer standing rigid beside the witness stand and the woman he had nearly struck. His throat moved, but no sound followed. Even he seemed afraid to interrupt what she represented. The court clerk whispered, "Your Honor, should I?" The judge lifted a trembling hand. "Not yet." Because deep down he knew the moment he spoke, history would remember whose side he chose. The woman in the mustard blazer didn't move. She stood like the center of gravity itself, unmoving, undeniable. Her eyes found his calm but cutting, and for the first time in his career, Judge Reynolds couldn't tell who was judging whom. "Officer Grant," he began, clearing his throat, "you are to remove yourself." But Grant interrupted, his voice ragged. "She provoked me, Your Honor. She was disrespectful." The judge froze. His words collided with Grant's and died there, smothered by tension. Because everyone could see what he was doing, clinging to authority as it slipped through his fingers. The cameras caught everything. The sweat on his temple, the flush of his neck, the twitch in his jaw. No gavel could silence that kind of evidence. Reynolds leaned back slowly, the weight of the bench no longer protecting him. He looked at her again. This composed woman in gold, who hadn't raised her voice once yet, had dismantled the entire courtroom's hierarchy. Mrs. He hesitated, realizing he didn't know her name. That alone was its own humiliation. She tilted her head slightly. "Ma'am will do?" It wasn't arrogance. It was equality demanded without sound. The judge nodded faintly, almost a bow disguised as protocol. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "you'll remain seated until this court." Her voice cut through like a blade wrapped in velvet. "Until this court, what exactly?" Reynolds blinked. There was no answer that didn't expose his fear. The bailiff shifted uncomfortably. The audience leaned forward, sensing the power balance tilting toward her, like watching gravity rewrite itself. Her phone buzzed again. Everyone heard it. The sound echoed through the speakers like a timer counting down. She didn't reach for it. Didn't need to. Her assistant's voice came through calm and professional. "Ma'am, everything's ready. We're standing by for confirmation." A ripple of murmurs moved through the courtroom. Grant turned pale. Confirmation. Of what? She didn't answer him. She just looked back at the judge. "You asked for order, Your Honor," she said softly. "I'm about to deliver it." Silence fell again, not fearful but expectant. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Reynolds swallowed hard. "Who exactly are you?" She didn't blink. "The woman who built the system you're standing in." The words landed with surgical precision. Reynolds leaned back, almost shrinking into his chair. The gavel slipped slightly from his fingers and rolled once on the bench before stopping a hollow clink that sounded more like surrender than authority. No one clapped. No one spoke. But every person in that courtroom knew the truth. The trial had already changed sides. The silence broke with a whisper. From somewhere in the back row, a young intern leaned toward her colleague. "That's her, the CEO of Horizon Legal Holdings." The words slipped into the air like smoke, slow at first, then unstoppable. One head turned, then another, then a dozen. Within seconds, the entire courtroom had changed temperature. Grant's confidence faltered, his shoulders tightened, his hand dropping from his belt as if it suddenly weighed too much. "That can't be her," someone muttered. "It is," another voice replied. "She funds half the ethics committees in this state." The realization spread faster than any verdict ever had. Every person in that room had either worked for her company, read her policies, or indirectly benefited from the reforms she'd authored. And now they were seeing her, not at a podium, not in a press photo, but standing in gold calm, accused and unbroken. Grant swallowed hard. "Ma'am." The words stumbled out like a confession. "I didn't know. You weren't supposed to," she said softly. "That's what makes this lesson honest." The reporters started typing furiously. The intern's live stream hit 20,000 viewers. One camera zoomed in on her nameplate on the table A. Carter. It confirmed everything. The judge sank a little lower in his chair, eyes fixed on the gold trim of her blazer. She didn't look rich. She looked inevitable. A murmur rolled through the gallery, shifting from gossip to awe. This wasn't a scandal anymore, it was revelation. A woman in the second row whispered, "She's the one who wrote the code of conduct." A man beside her replied, "And he just broke it on her." The irony hung thick in the air, heavy as guilt. Grant's voice cracked again. "This is all a misunderstanding." "No," she interrupted. "It's a demonstration." Her tone wasn't cruel, it was instructional, and that made it sting more. Outside, social media feeds exploded. Number courtroom CEO climbed past trending news. The clip of her saying, "You just made it yours," was already viral. A line destined for headlines, documentaries, maybe history books. Back inside, she turned slightly, facing the judge, the jury, the cameras, the world. "Now that everyone knows who's standing here," she said, "let's continue properly." Grant looked smaller now, not because of shame, but because truth had shrunk him. The courtroom wasn't his domain anymore. It was her boardroom, and somewhere beyond those wooden doors, lawyers, board members, and an entire corporate machine were already preparing to act on her next command. The vibration of her phone sliced through the silence like a cue. Every camera turned toward the small device resting beside her case files, its glow faint but commanding. She didn't touch it. She didn't need to. With one tap, the courtroom speakers connected. A clear, professional voice filled the room. "This is the Ethics Oversight Board of Horizon Legal Holdings. Miss Carter, we've reviewed the footage you submitted." The room gasped. Grant's head jerked toward the sound as if he'd just heard his own sentence. "Footage," he whispered. The voice continued calm and surgical. "The evidence shows misconduct, abuse of authority, and violation of federal conduct standards. Do you wish to proceed with formal termination?" She exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that comes not from exhaustion but from arrival. "Yes," she said. Effective immediately. Grant stumbled forward. "Wait, you can't. This isn't your jurisdiction." Her gaze never shifted. "Everything you said to me," she replied, "you said under my company's surveillance network. This courtroom is leased through Horizon Security Systems." The realization hit like thunder. The cameras mounted above the ones recording the trial weren't the court's. They were hers. The judge's face paled. "Miss Carter, is this a live audit?" "It's accountability," she said. "Something this room forgot how to deliver." The board member's voice returned. "Authorization confirmed. Officer Grant's access credentials have been revoked." His certification will be reviewed by the Attorney General's office. Grant's badge emitted a faint beep, then a red flash. The entire room saw it. The symbol of his power had just turned itself off. He looked down at it, disbelief melting into panic. You can't do this. I already did." Her voice stayed even, controlled, almost merciful, but it carried the weight of every courtroom she'd been dismissed from, every insult she'd turned into law. The gallery broke into murmurs, not loud but electric. Reporters whispered to one another, "This is historic. She's firing him live." The judge swallowed hard, searching for words, but none would form. Because deep down he understood she wasn't defying the system. She was using it, the very system she built, to correct itself. The voice on the speaker concluded, "Termination confirmed. Legal audit initiated. Miss Carter, your directive stands." The phone went silent. Grant's did too. And when she finally looked at him, it wasn't hatred in her eyes. It was finality. "Justice," she said quietly, "isn't revenge. It's a mirror." He looked away first. The red light on Grant's badge blinked twice, then died. It was a small thing, a muted signal, a mechanical sigh, but in the silence that followed it felt biblical. The courtroom, once ruled by his voice and his badge, now watched him unravel in real time. Grant stared at the dead light as if willing it back to life. "It's a malfunction," he muttered half to himself. "No," someone whispered from the gallery, "it's justice." His hand trembled. The once polished authority in his posture was gone, replaced by something smaller, recognition. He looked up at the judge for rescue, but Judge Reynolds wasn't looking at him anymore. The gavel rested untouched on the bench. His eyes were on her. The woman in the mustard blazer hadn't moved since the verdict because she didn't need to. Power didn't require motion. It only required presence. Grant's radio crackled weakly. "Unit 4, please confirm your status." He didn't answer, because he no longer had a unit to belong to. The reporters began typing, not furiously now, but reverently. Every keystroke was an obituary for arrogance. The bailiff, unsure what to do, stepped forward, hesitated, then stopped when she raised a single hand. "Let him stand," she said softly. "He's not a threat anymore." That mercy hit harder than punishment. Grant swallowed his voice, breaking under the weight of his own echo. "Why didn't you stop me?" Her eyes lifted steady, unwavering. "Because you stopped yourself the moment you touched me." The line hung in the air like smoke, fragile, undeniable. The judge cleared his throat. "Officer Grant, you are." But she interrupted, not unkindly. "He already knows." The gavel finally fell, not as a sentence, but as punctuation. In the gallery, the young intern whispered to her phone's live stream, "It's over. He's done." Her voice trembled, part disbelief, part awe. Grant's knees softened. He reached for his badge again, as if to anchor himself, but found nothing but metal and memory. Behind him, 2 court officers exchanged a look, the kind that said, "We won't stop her." They had seen too much. She gathered her notes calmly, tucking them into a leather folder embossed with gold letters, Horizon Legal Holdings. Her every move was deliberate, the choreography of composure. Then, before turning away, she spoke one last time to the trembling man beside her. "You taught me something today," she said. "That silence isn't weakness. It's evidence." Grant's lips parted, but no words came out. Outside, the sound of rain began to tap against the courthouse glass. Inside, the only sound left was the soft hum of a phone recording the end of a man who thought he could control her. And somewhere that video was already captioned, "The badge turned red, and so did his career." No one spoke. The echo of the gavel still hovered in the air, but its authority had evaporated. The real verdict wasn't carved into paper, it was written across every stunned face in that courtroom. Aisha Carter stood still. Her mustard yellow blazer, once grabbed, wrinkled, disrespected, now gleamed under the soft ceiling light like gold reclaimed from fire. The silence that filled the room wasn't emptiness, it was respect, earned, not requested. Slowly, she gathered her things, the folder, the pen, her phone. Each sound, the click, the zip, the quiet, echoed louder than any applause could have. No one dared to move until she did. Even the judge sat motionless, hands, folded, eyes lowered, as if the bench itself had become her witness stand. She turned calm, measured her heels, striking the marble-like punctuation marks to a speech already finished. Every head followed. Reporters forgot to take notes. Lawyers forgot to breathe. The bailiff stepped aside instinctively, not because protocol said so, because reverence did. Grant still stood near the stand, motionless. His badge hung useless from his chest, a relic of arrogance now turned artifact. He tried to meet her eyes, but couldn't. As she passed him, she paused. Not for him, for the truth. "Do you hear that?" she asked quietly. He frowned, confused. "Hear what?" "Nothing," she said. "That's what justice sounds like." She walked on. The court doors swung open without a push, as if the building itself recognized her authority now. The hallway beyond glowed with the light of afternoon, soft, almost forgiving. Outside, the crowd was waiting, phones still in hand. The clip of the slap that never landed had already gone viral. Number mustard blazer woman had climbed to the top of every trending feed. Reporters surged forward, microphones extended. "Miss Carter, do you have any comment? Was this retaliation or reform? What happens next?" She stopped on the courthouse steps, letting the noise wash over her without touching her. Her voice, when it came, was low, too calm for the chaos around her. "Retaliation is emotion, reform is evidence. You'll know which this was when you see the new policy tomorrow morning." The cameras clicked, frantic, hungry. But her face didn't change. No triumph, no vengeance, only peace. Behind her, the heavy oak doors shut slowly, muffling the remaining whispers. Inside, men who once ruled that room now stood silent, watching the door she'd just walked through as if it had closed on an era. One reporter lowered her mic, whispering she didn't yell once. Another replied, almost in awe, she didn't need to. The rain outside had turned into a fine mist glistening under the courthouse lights. It clung to her blazer like silver dust, soft, pure, victorious. She stepped down the stairs, one calm stride at a time, disappearing into the rhythm of her own restraint. Because justice, when it's real, doesn't need to raise its voice. It simply walks away, leaving silence behind to speak for it. The rain steadied, light but certain, the kind that cleans more than it wets. Aisha Carter reached the bottom of the courthouse steps and paused. The crowd pressed forward, but she didn't speak yet. Power, she knew, wasn't in the volume of your voice. It was in the timing of your silence. The reporters shouted questions like confetti, desperate, meaningless. "Miss Carter, will you press charges? Is this the end of his career? Do you plan to resign from the board?" She smiled faintly. "Not motskerit's clarity." Her assistant Nia appeared beside her, holding an umbrella sleek and black against the gray afternoon. Aisha didn't take it. She let the rain fall. "Madam," Nia whispered, "the board's statement is ready for release." "Good," Aisha said softly. "Make it public. All of it, every word. Let transparency do what pride couldn't." The cameras zoomed in, catching the fine raindrops glinting on her blazer like sequins of light. A symbol had been born. The mustard suit, the unflinching woman, the storm that bowed to her calm. A voice from the steps shouted, "Miss Carter, one question. Why didn't you defend yourself in the moment?" She turned toward the man holding the mic, her gaze steady but warm. "Because truth doesn't shout," she said. "It waits." The reporters fell silent just for a breath, because they knew a headline when they heard one. She began to walk again, the crowd parting instinctively like waves yielding to tide. Her heels clicked against the wet stone. 3 beats, pause. 3 beats, a rhythm of composure that sounded like punctuation at the end of chaos. Behind her, the courthouse loomed, tall, gray, humbled. Inside, Officer Grant sat alone, the red light still blinking faintly on his badge, now meaningless. He stared at the doorway she'd walked through, whispering to no one. Why didn't she stop me? But the only answer was silence. And silence, he realized, was the verdict. Aisha reached the waiting car. Nia opened the door, but before stepping inside, she turned back one last time. The cameras followed her every move, zoomed, flashing, trembling. She looked directly into one lens, not smiling, not angry, just true. "Next time," she said, voice low, "check my profile before you raise your hand." A line of thunder rolled in the distance, soft but timed like applause. The driver shut the door. The car pulled away slowly, taillights glowing through the mist like the final credits of a film. And as it disappeared down the wet street, the crowd remained frozen, quiet, reflective, changed. No chant, no noise, no victory speech. Just the lingering truth that sometimes the strongest sound in the world is restraint. Back inside the courthouse, the bailiff looked down at the empty stand where she'd stood moments ago and whispered under his breath, "She didn't win because she fought. She won because she didn't need to." The last of the rain tapered off. And somewhere above the courthouse dome, the gray clouds split open, a beam of pale sunlight spilling over the city she had just reminded what justice truly looked like. End of story. Black CEO gets slapped in court. 5 minutes later, she ends his career.